Welcome to In Camera, Hollywood Scandals, Legal Truths. I'm Adriana Collado, movie fan, history buff, criminal defense lawyer. Join me behind the scenes of Hollywood's most controversial criminal cases and uncover the hidden stories, excluded evidence, and legal tactics the public never saw. Let's go in camera. April 4th, 1958, Beverly Hills, California. It's Good Friday, 9 days after the Academy Awards. Sometime after midnight, a mob associate named Johnny Stompanato is stabbed to death in the all-pink bedroom in the home of one of Hollywood's most glamorous actresses. The police are called, and a young girl confesses. 1 week later, a Los Angeles coroner's jury deliberates for less than 25 minutes and rules the death a justifiable homicide. No criminal trial, no conviction, no prison. Case closed. Or was it? Because the more you look at what actually happened in that bedroom and what happened at that coroner's inquest, the more questions pile up. If you were alive in 1958, you knew Lana Turner. She was one of MGM's biggest stars for nearly 2 decades, a stunning blonde who stopped men dead in their tracks. Early in her career, she'd been dubbed the Sweater Girl, a nickname that tells you everything about Lana's sex pot image. And she played that role to perfection in movies like Love Finds Andy Hardy and The Postman Always Rings Twice. But behind the glamour, Lana Turner's personal life was a recurring disaster. 7 marriages, a string of volatile relationships with dangerous men, a studio system that protected her because she was a commodity, and a tabloid press that loved her for it. But by 1958, Lana's career was starting to fade. The big MGM roles weren't coming like they used to, and she was 37 years old in an industry that was beginning to look past her. And then, Johnny Stompanato walked in. Johnny Stompanato was a 32-year-old former U.S. Marine. He was handsome in a very specific, dangerous way. He was also connected to Los Angeles mob boss Mickey Cohen's gang, running errands, collecting money, making himself useful. And Stompanato had a history with women, specifically older, wealthy women. Coercion, psychological manipulation, intimidation, what we'd call gaslighting today, that was his relationship MO. Lana met him in 1957, shortly after her divorce from actor Lex Barker, who was famous for playing Tarzan on screen. Lana and Stompanato's relationship was passionate, toxic, and almost immediately physical. And by Lana's account, it was also frightening. Stompanato was obsessively jealous. And when Lana traveled to the UK to film the movie Another Time, Another Place, opposite a not yet famous actor named Sean Connery, tabloid photos of the two dining together made their way back to Los Angeles. In a rage, Stompanato boarded a plane and stormed onto the set brandishing a gun. But Connery, a former competitive bodybuilder, grabbed Stompanato's wrist, twisted it until the gun came loose, and knocked Stompanato down with a single punch. Lana called Scotland Yard, and Stompanato was escorted off the set and deported from England for violating its firearms laws. The incident was quietly buried. Now, Lana repeatedly tried to end the relationship, but Stompanato wouldn't go away. He threatened, pleaded, stalked, and possibly even blackmailed her. On March 26, 1958, the night of the Academy Awards, Lana Turner did not take Johnny Stompanato as her date. Instead, she brought her mother and her daughter, Cheryl Crane. Stompanato lost it, and several days of screaming and increasingly violent arguments ensued. Then came the night of April 4th. Cheryl Crane said she could hear Stompanato raging at her mother through bedroom walls, yelling, throwing things. But then she heard something that made her freeze. Stompanato threatened to cut up Lana's face and then go after Lana's mother and Cheryl. Cheryl went downstairs to the kitchen and returned with an 8-inch carving knife. She walked into her mother's room, and Johnny Stompanato ended up on the floor with a single stab wound to the abdomen. He was dead in minutes. Cheryl confessed to stabbing him. She was just 14 years old. Now, if you listen to our episode on Errol Flynn, you already know the name Jerry Giesler. He was the most famous criminal defense attorney in Hollywood, the man studios and celebrities called whenever there was a crisis. Nicknamed Get Me Giesler, He arrived at the Turner home within the hour. He managed the scene, coordinated with law enforcement, and arranged for Cheryl's surrender to the police in the early hours of April 5th. Giesler then immediately started building his strategy, which we'll break down in a minute. But consider, in a case built on performance, strategy, and carefully managed narrative, a confession is only the beginning of the story. Now, from a purely strategic standpoint, why was Cheryl front and center? The answer is lots of reasons. First, the forum. In 1958, California's juvenile justice system gave the court broad discretion over how to handle a minor accused of homicide. Juvenile proceedings were closed, records were sealed from the public, there would be no open criminal trial, no cameras in the courtroom. For Giesler, a juvenile proceeding was the most favorable possible forum because it meant no public trial at all. Second, the exposure. If Lana killed Stompanato and the DA decided to prosecute her, she faced full adult criminal proceedings, discovery, forensic evidence, a prosecutor with subpoena power, a jury trial, and there are no guaranteed outcomes, even in cases that seem open and shut. Giesler was an extraordinarily good trial lawyer, but defense attorneys will not risk a trial if they can win without one. Third, the optics. A terrified 14-year-old who saved her mother from a violent, mob-connected abuser was untouchable as a sympathetic figure. Even the most skeptical observer would hesitate to condemn her. Compare that to the alternative. A 37-year-old woman, however traumatized, however abused, who killed her boyfriend. Legally defensible? Of course, but a harder story to sell in 1958. For all these reasons, the best legal approach was to focus on Cheryl as the perpetrator and have Lana as the star witness. And a coroner's inquest was the perfect forum. No adversarial party, no cross-examination, no forensic challenge. Just a jury, a packed courtroom, and one of Hollywood's most glamorous actresses on the witness stand. Now, while Giesler prepared for the inquest, Cheryl Crane remained in juvenile detention, a fact that surprises people when they first hear it. After surrendering to police, Cheryl was booked on a holding charge, gave a formal statement, and was transferred to juvenile hall in downtown LA. On April 7th, a closed pre-detention hearing was held before juvenile court judge Donald Odell. Lana appeared and asked him to release Cheryl to her grandmother's custody. The judge refused. He ruled that Cheryl would be safer in custody given the press siege outside Lana's front door and the mob-connected nature of the deceased. At the coroner's inquest on April 11th, Cheryl did not appear. The court excused her on the grounds that testifying would be too traumatic. Instead, a written statement she gave the police on the night of the killing was read aloud on her behalf. Now, this is a significant detail, and we're going to come back to it. A coroner's inquest is not a criminal trial. Under California law, it was a statutory proceeding convened by the coroner to determine the cause and manner of a suspicious or violent death. The coroner controlled the proceedings, summoning witnesses, directing testimony, managing the jury, and the inquest jury had only one job: determine how, when, and by what means the deceased died. They weren't convicting anyone nor acquitting anyone. The verdict options were narrow: natural causes, accident, suicide, or homicide, and if it was a homicide, whether it was justifiable. There was no prosecutor presenting a case for conviction, and the strict evidentiary rules of a criminal trial did not apply. And under California law, whatever verdict the inquest jury returned was inadmissible at any subsequent civil or criminal proceeding. What it did have is a public stage. Now, multiple accounts of the Turner inquest note that Giesler, who was technically present as Turner's personal attorney and not as a party to the proceeding, was on the floor prompting her testimony as she spoke. In a criminal trial, that would never happen. But at a coroner's inquest, it was entirely within the coroner's discretion. The coroner allowed it, and Jerry Giesler understood the assignment. The inquest was held in a packed Los Angeles courtroom on April 11, 1958. The press filled every available seat, and the public was riveted. Lana Turner took the stand and delivered what multiple journalists immediately called the performance of her life. She described the abuse, the threats, the terror of that night. Giesler's strategy was clear and surgically precise. Keep the jury's focus entirely on Stompanato's cruelty and his violent nature. In other words, put the dead man on trial. The coroner's jury deliberated briefly and returned a verdict of justifiable homicide. Now, after the verdict, Cheryl was released to her grandmother's care and ordered into psychiatric counseling with her parents. No charges were ever filed. Now let's go sidebar. As a matter of law, it wouldn't have mattered who held the knife. Cheryl's theory was defense of others. Now, under California law, a person may use deadly force to defend someone else if they reasonably believe that person faces imminent death or great bodily injury. So let's see what Cheryl witnessed that night. She knew about Stompanato's past. She heard him threaten to slash her mother's face and then go after her and her grandmother. Cheryl heard screaming, items breaking. She had every reason to believe Stompanato's threat was real. On their face, these facts sufficiently supported a defense of others theory. Now let's flip the script and assume that Lana had killed Stompanato. Lana's theory would clearly have been self-defense, and Stompanato, who subjected Lana to ongoing emotional and physical abuse, threatened to disfigure her and harm her family. He had already shown no qualms about publicly brandishing a firearm against her, so under the circumstances, Lana was reasonably afraid for herself and her family. Legally, the standards for self-defense and defense of others are parallel. Psychologically, they are not. And Giesler, a trial lawyer to the core, knew exactly which one to sell. A 14-year-old defending her mother evokes a jury's sympathy and makes her a hero. An adult woman defending herself from a violent relationship that was just one in a string of questionable romances? That's a tougher room. Now, I'm not minimizing Lana's trauma or victim blaming, but I am framing the story as it might have been judged at that time. Giesler leveraged the better narrative. That is smart lawyering. Now, what the inquest format did not do was what courts supposedly do best, which is put the evidence to the test. That's significant because Lana and Cheryl's account came under fire immediately after the inquest. Stompanato's family filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit seeking $750,000. That's roughly $6 million in today's money. And in the civil depositions that followed, some uncomfortable facts came to light. During Cheryl's deposition, she reportedly told the plaintiff's attorney that she could not recall stabbing Stompanato and that she could not recall giving the written statement that was read on her behalf at the inquest. The plaintiff's attorney also presented evidence suggesting Stompanato may have been stabbed while lying down, which was inconsistent with Cheryl's account of a standing confrontation. The suit alleged that it was unclear whether Cheryl or Lana inflicted the fatal wound or whether they acted together. The case eventually settled in 1962 for $20,000, which is roughly $158,000 today. That settlement figure tells you a great deal about the strength of the Stompanato's family's case. But if it's not obvious, let me sum it up for you. Without a verdict to support their lawsuit, and given Johnny Stompanato's nasty reputation and public sympathy firmly on Cheryl and Lana's side, a trial on the merits was unlikely to go to Stompanato's way. But it would run up legal bills and incur additional stress, publicity, and grief. So Lana probably paid that off and agreed to settle for a token sum just to make the case go away. Sometimes it's better to pay than play. The question of who held the knife has never been definitively resolved, and I won't be doing that here. After the inquest, a juvenile court hearing in late April formally closed the matter. Notably, the judge raised concerns about whether Cheryl was receiving adequate parental supervision, a diplomatic understatement given everything. Mickey Cohen was furious. In retaliation, he leaked Lana Turner's private love letters to Stompanato to the press. The public read them and sympathized with Lana anyway. But Cohen's reach extended further than the press. After Stompanato was killed, word reached Sean Connery that Cohen's associates had a grudge against him for the incident in the UK. Connery smartly kept a very low profile until the heat died down. He knew that the consequences of crossing Mickey Cohen's world, didn't always end at the courtroom door. Lana Turner's next film, Imitation of Life, was released in April 1959. It was a massive commercial success. And instead of damaging her image, the scandal made her more sympathetic to audiences. Cheryl Crane spent time in psychiatric institutions in the years following the killing, and she struggled for a long time. The public scrutiny, the silence in her own family, a turbulent relationship with her mother. Then in 1988, Cheryl Crane wrote her memoirs called Detour, A Hollywood Story. And in it, she dropped a bombshell. Cheryl revealed that Lex Barker, Lana Turner's fourth husband, sexually abused her beginning when she was 10 years old. And when Lana found out, she pointed a gun at Barker's head and kicked him out of the house. That revelation adds a sad dimension to Cheryl's psyche and underscores the lack of security and safety that haunted her youth. Sexual abuse at the hands of one of her mother's partners and mental and emotional terror at the hands of another, without question, Cheryl Crane is a survivor. Now, Cheryl and Lana reconciled in later years and by all accounts became genuinely close. And they remained close until Lana's death. Jerry Giesler retired not too long after the inquest and died on January 1st, 1962. He never lost the big ones. The Turner case is a lesson in what happens when you have the right stage and the lawyer who knows how to direct the show. Was justice done? I'll leave that for you to decide. But what I will say is this. Having Hollywood's best defense attorney in Cheryl and Lana's corner made all the difference. Not everyone got Giesler. Thanks for joining me in camera. I'm Adriana Collado. Roll credits. We're adjourned. Like what you saw? Hit subscribe and follow us on social media. And leave a comment below. I want to hear your take. There's always more to the story. I'll see you next time in camera.